Well, at this time, we would like to start the Q&A session, a very brief one. We just have one question from Daniela Ramirez Castillo, question for Gustavo Molina. It says, can you tell us about the type of reactors that Mexico uses? Are they intentioned for nuclear energy or for research purposes? Please, Gustavo, if you can reply to this question.
Yes, well, the answer is Mexico has 2 nuclear power reactors for produce electricity. These are in the state of Veracruz in a central called Laguna Verde. We also have a small research reactor at Inin, close to Mexico City, which it is only for research and isotope production purposes.
Thank you, Gustavo. We have a second question. This is from Nicole Edu, and she's a YouTuber from Chile. And she said that at the beginning of the presentation, it showed the number of nuclear bombs that has increased. How are nuclear bombs eliminated? Are they treated as nuclear waste, or there is a specific process for it? This is the second question.
Okay, so that's an excellent question. It has a happy answer and a bad answer. Of course, some of the materials that are used, I'm sorry for the echo. Some of the materials are used, can be reused. So the plutonium taken out and then destroyed and maybe used in reactors and so on. And so that's the happy answer, which is that there was an agreement between the United States and Russia to use some of that material and to burn some of that material and use that in reactors. But unfortunately, that agreement is not there anymore. And I fear that we won't go that way for quite a while. So that was there was always this famous statement, which is that, I don't know, 30% or something of the energy, I forgot the exact number, certain percentages of the energy that you use in your light bulbs are actually used from Soviet bombs. But unfortunately, that's not what's happening anymore. In terms of dealing it, a lot of the materials still classified. So even if you take what are called the pits from the in the nuclear weapons, and you try to destroy the pits, then there's ways you have to deal with that material, but all that's still classified and it's still kind of in storage.
Thank you, Anya Friends. We have another question for you. This is a question from William Nicolas from IT. It says, why so much concerns about DPRK uranium enrichment when we know that they don't have such nuclear reactor?
So in the case of DPRK, they do have nuclear reactors and they do have nuclear enrichment plants. And the question is always, how many enrichment plants do they have? It's for sure they have more than 2, I suspect. And so there's also different advantages, for example, to make nuclear bombs out of plutonium. But if it's known where the reactors are, which they know because it's in the Yongbyon facility, then that reactor could be, of course, bombed because reactors are not movable. So that makes it they're very vulnerable to that. So of course, there's going to be uranium enrichment plants that they have hidden plants so that they can be sure that they can always produce more nuclear weapons when they need to. And this is why it's so important to have a good transparency agreement between, DPRK and the rest of the world to make sure that we understand what the baseline is. We understand how many nuclear weapons they have. We understand how they produce nuclear materials and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, actually, that's something that we are really trying to do to increase transparency, to request for that. I mean, the baseline is something that we really get, and actually have requested many times to nuclear weapon states, but a lot of times the answer, particularly for fissile material, is it's not possible to do an inventory out of it. Particularly the US and sometimes Russia. They have said, I mean, we have under control this, but at the time that some of this material was developed, we did not have the accountability that we do have today. So I think that's just one to leave that out there as a matter of some of the risks that we are facing nowadays with this type of materials. But I'll go to some other questions. We have a couple of them. We have one from Andrew from Jamaica. It's saying, fully recognizing that nuclear energy can be used for peaceful purposes, since the creation of nuclear weapons is facilitated by the production of fissile material, why are global efforts more focused on creating a fissile material core of treaty as it will control the state's capabilities to produce highly enriched uranium and plutonium, thereby contributing to non-proliferation and disarmament? So that's another question. To reply to that, or leave to the next panel, we're going to have some comments on verification and the ethnicity. Any comments from our panelists on that one, or?
I'm not seeing the question. I'm sorry.
It says why there are not are global efforts more focused on creating an FMCT, a fissile material core of treaty. That will be maybe the question. In order to contribute to non-proliferation and disarmament.
I apologize. I can't hear the question well.
I see.
Yeah, it's more related to how to control fissile material and more in a way of why we're not focusing more efforts in having an FMCT, a fissile material core of treaty. It's more a question, I think, in terms of, technical and political aspects related to these efforts. Yeah.
Paolo, I can give the participants, they can ask the questions live if they wish to do so.
Could you help me with that, Jan? Because we have some technical problems to do so.
No, I've given Andrew Rodgers. He can, if he's online, he can ask the question if he wishes to do so.
Okay, Andrew, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Okay, so my question is, fully recognizing that nuclear energy can be used for peaceful purposes, since the creation of nuclear weapons is facilitated by the production of fissile material, why aren't global efforts more focused on establishing the fissile material cutoff treaty, as that would affect states' capabilities to produce highly enriched uranium and plutonium and contribute to non-proliferation and disarmament?
Yes, my deep apologies for not understanding the question earlier. Yeah, I mean, that's, you make a very, very important point, which is that the fissile material cutoff treaty is, there's not enough effort in terms of trying to really get this going. I think we can only have, proper peaceful use of nuclear weapons if we have this kind of treaty in effect. I think Sharon Squazzoni is online, and she's, I'm sure, going to discuss this in the next panel. It's nice to see you, Sharon.
Thank you for both presentations. I would like to ask Dr. Molina a question. We saw that 10% of world energy is nuclear energy. And we also saw the treatment of waste produced by nuclear plants, which requires lots of care. I was wondering how sustainable would it be to increase the percentage of nuclear energy, also considering the low amount of emissions of greenhouse gases of nuclear energy. Thank you very much.
The increase of nuclear power for produce electricity is being increased in the Asian countries, in Russia, in China, and in India. The rest of Western countries are not increasing the production of nuclear power for electricity. That's due to the nuclear accidents that have happened in the past. So we don't know. We don't know if this is going to be increased in the West or not. And some countries have banned nuclear power, well, Italy closed after the Chernobyl accident. Germany cooled down the production of electricity from nuclear reactors. So we have to see. This is not sure if this is going to be increased or decreased. It also, in the equation, enters the production of clean energy from wind and sun. So we need to see what is going to be in the future. Of course, nuclear power has advantages and disadvantages. We as nuclear people, we would like to see an increase of nuclear production, but things to be clear, and we need to wait what is going on.
I'll read the question. It's for Ferenc. If the nuclear waste material in the island atolls get into the ocean, what current technologies are in place for mitigation, cleanup or recovery?
Thank you for the question. That's a very difficult question to answer. There are ways you could deal with it, but I'm unsure. I'm unsure how to answer that.
May I comment?
Yeah,
on that?
go ahead, Gustavo. Yes.
Well, the water of the sea makes a lot of dilution, so there is no reason to concern for that pathway to human, even if there are other mechanisms for concentration in the terms of some mollusks or other sea organisms. So there is no concern. It was also the same case during the Fukushima accident. The path through seawater was negligible in terms of concentration and dilution and transportation to other countries. So no problem with that. The problem would be for the concentrated fission products or activation products in the island itself. It is at risk for the population there and the be control, etc. But for the seawater, no problem.
Well, I worry respectfully, I worry about concentrated hotspots, essentially, that can always happen. And of course, the effect on the fisheries, the local fisheries industry will be very severe, potentially. And I think that's what part of the concern was.
Well, yes, concentrated hotspots in land is a problem and should be controlled and monitored. But the dispersion through the seawater is so huge, the amount of water, that concentration is negligible. You can see, of course, with modern techniques of monitoring, small amounts, but they do not represent a problem for the people or the fisheries or that. I mean, you can see small amounts, but not to concentrations to be a problem for human consumption of whatever. No problem.
I suggest if our panelists can bear with us, that we take 2 more questions and then we take a very short break, and then we could take some of the other questions after the panel, if everyone agrees with that. Paula, go ahead. I don't know who you have next on your line.
So Now we have Gonzalo Vasquez.
Thank you very much. This is Gonzalo from Guatemala. I have a question for Professor Gustavo Molina. As Undersecretary Nakamitsu pointed out yesterday, nuclear war and climate change are the biggest threats to human existence. And well, this link has been made lately on an open debate in the Security Council, which raises its importance. And I think to sum up my question, you actually mentioned that nuclear power has some advantages. And I would like to know what those advantages are in comparison with other sustainable sources of energy like aeolic, hydroelectric, or solar power, which at the end would actually benefit the establishment of an FMCT treaty. Thank you.
Okay, it's an interesting question. First of all, nuclear energy is a good price. I mean, the production of electricity from nuclear power is equivalent to carbon. Also, another advantage is that it can be used for low charge. I mean, the nuclear powers are used at full power. It means that they are not used for charge load following. So it is an advantage because the way you can get the better a price, and they are used at full capacity. Also, nuclear power does not produce CO2, so in that point are less harmful to the environment. The bad side of nuclear energy is that produces nuclear waste. For us, the technology is good enough to guarantee a long-term isolation. Long-term means 500,000 years or more of isolation with the technology that we can have at this time. I mean, this is well, the other point is cost. This arguing issue. New technologies from solar perhaps can get better price than cost than the nuclear energy, but as it is not constant, because solar is intermittent during the day, or even during cloudy days you cannot have solar. So in that way, until we don't have ability for store energy, nuclear energy is a good choice.
Got it. Thank you. So that's a good question. I don't think it's unavoidable. Many countries, as we know, are using nuclear power, for example, Canada, and they're not jumping for using nuclear weapons. Nuclear power is considered to be a very important part of Canadian power. So it's not that it's necessarily that and also it's a very strong nuclear technology in Canada. The same is true in Argentina and other places. They're using nuclear power, but they haven't jumped to use nuclear weapons. So I don't think it's unavoidable that you would make that leap to go to nuclear power. For sure, the IAEA is very important to safeguards. It's very, very critical to making sure that people comply with this. But it's not, you can have peaceful nuclear power And nuclear material is not just nuclear power, it's also other things like using nuclear isotopes and so on, which are tremendously important without making the jump to nuclear power. And in fact, I mean, how many nuclear powers and nuclear countries do we have that are producing and have nuclear weapons? It's not so many compared to the rest of the world who's using it peacefully.